I call to order the Board of Trustee regular meeting for November 21st, 2023, and the time is now 6 p.m. Trustee Johnson, would you like to give the invocation? And a moment of silence for the talks of Boris Valley.
A moment of silence as I read the names off of the deceased from the terrible accident we had on Interstate 70. John Mosley, Jeffrey Worrell, Caitlin Owens, Dave Knapp, Christy Gaynor, and Shannon Wakefield. Dear Lord, be with these families as they've lost their loved ones, and that happened right here in our township. Help be the first responders that had to go through the ordeal of seeing that, of the other students that had to go through the ordeal. Some are still injured. We just ask you to heal those people and heal them in their minds also. You bring peace to them. Be with us as we meet tonight, and be with our servicemen that are working to keep us safe, just like our first responders did. Amen.
Amen. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. McKee?
Here. I move to approve the flexibility in the agenda to move the executive session after the public comments. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion, please.
Don't we have to move to approve the agenda? That's not your motion?
No, sir. No. This is the flexibility.
Okay, well, my discussion would be, once again, this agenda is not a cooperative agenda. It was released yesterday, less than 26 hours before the meeting, to myself as trustee and the residents. You cannot properly prepare for a meeting with that. Some agenda items weren't even provided any information. And I believe that the presentations here are listed as prior to public comments, and on the motion sheet, it looks like there's going to be three items that are voted on. I don't think the board should take any action without first listening to our residents. So I would make a motion to move public comments to before the presentations. Again, to allow the public to provide input on all board matters.
I think you have a pending motion.
I do. For
There was
the
a
motion
and a
is to,
second.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I move to amend that.
So your motion is to amend.
Well, there's no second.
You just have to ask.
Is there a second?
No.
Now you vote on your original motion.
We'll vote on the original message, on the original motion, which is to have the flexibility to move the executive session. Roll call, please, Ms.
Mr.
Marion.
Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay.
She didn't listen to anything.
Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Well, isn't there a discussion?
Discussion, you want to do a discussion? Go ahead, you can
I'm a
discuss.
little confused here,
Yeah,
but
you shouldn't be.
I'll vote no for the same reasons that the everything voted on should be after we hear from the public.
Roll call, Ms. Marion, please.
Evans?
No.
Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. McKee?
Yes.
So you're still showing you don't care about the residents, huh, Roz, even after the election?
I would ask you to stop talking, okay? It's not about caring about the residents, because you're not getting your way. I need you to stop, please. I move to adopt the minutes for October 3rd, 2023. I move to adopt the minutes for October 24th, 2023, and I move to adopt the minutes for November 7th, 2023 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, please.
Yes, once again, these minutes do not properly reflect the actions of the board and the true discussions. They're whitewashed and biased. I'd like to move that we separate the November 7th special meeting from the October 3rd and October 24th and deal with them separately. So I move to amend that and deal with those separately.
Reason? You have a reason to do that?
Because the November 7th is pretty much straightforward, and there's no issues with it. The others aren't. So I would vote to approve the November 7th, not the others.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion?
Nope, voting on the amendment.
I'm sorry?
He voted to pull those out, right? Pull those December 7 out. So we'll take those out. We'll do the first two, right?
You have to.
We have to vote on it. We have to vote. So,
Okay.
Is there more discussion?
I don't think so.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
yes.
This is on the amendment.
This is on your.
On the
motion
amendment, then yes, to pull it out.
To separate,
So
yeah.
I'm sorry.
You voted no, but you said you wanted
I
it.
voted yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
McKee?
No.
And then the original one.
So back to the original one. This is October 3rd and October 24th, correct?
Yes.
Approval of those minutes. All right. I'm in approval.
Roll call? Yes, please.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
So now you have to
think
make
we have
a
to
roll
vote.
call to approve November 7th.
Right.
Let's make a,
Yeah, now you need to have a roll call to approve
Don't
November 7th.
somebody have to make a motion to
I will
approve?
make a motion to approve November 7th.
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion?
No discussion?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Bill Lozier for an update on the Pike Street project, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm going to wait for our consultant to hook up and show us.
Okay, okay, no problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be behind, it's gonna project behind you. I'm probably gonna have to.
You want us to turn those
Do it, I was gonna say, let's turn the side lights on.
So they're back here on that side or in the back?
Is that good? Can you see now?
Everybody see okay?
Boy, oh boy, that's gonna be hard to see, but as big as we can make it. I'm gonna have to go up there and give everybody a general idea of what we're talking about here. I'm Bill Lozier, I'm the Director of Projects for the Lincoln County TID. The township is in an agreement with the TID, to reconstruct Pike Street in 2 phases. Phase 1 is east of 310, phase 2 is west of 310. So we were funded $2.6 million from MORPC, those are federal funds, for the reconstruction of the easterly part, which is phase 1. That program is an 80% match, meaning that the township would pay 20%. The engineer's estimate so far is, Scott, was it 3.2 or 3.4 million? I don't have that information. Right now, I think the township is responsible for whatever 20% of 3.4 million is. Come on, now, you could remember. 680,000. Yeah, 680,000. So there is a gap between, and Trustee Evans, you brought this up previously. At the westerly end of the project is a development that is multi-use, and it is connecting to Pike Street. It's connecting at Pike Street at a location that doesn't match where our project is, so there is a gap between the two projects. I'll go up and show you.
Yeah, I was
how
gonna
this
say, can you
works.
go up and show us?
Probably have to make it a little smaller than that, Scott. Zoom out. Oh boy.
Oh, boy, sorry.
So, in general, this is the new development, and this is an overhead view of it. US Route 40 is out here, and current Pike Street connects into it right there. So under this plan of this development, there would be a new intersection for that development that would be squared up rather than the skew angle that exists right now. ODOT has told the developer that they need to provide a traffic signal because of the increased traffic that all of these homes and businesses are going to generate. Every time we do a development, we have to do something called a traffic impact study. And if you impact the public road, you have to mitigate those impacts. In this case, it was a new traffic signal. I don't think that there was any requirement for turn lanes. I think all of the lanes were already there. It was a 5-lane section, but there is a requirement for a traffic signal. So the development further would put a stub of a road farther to the west on Pike Street. This section in between is to be abandoned, that section of Pike Street. Okay. So our project is farther to the west on Pike Street, and it ends at this stream, and it always has. That left a gap of 550 feet plus or minus between the two projects. And if we look at what our project would look like, let's go to the next exhibit. We should have had our last exhibit. This is a slice out of the road. If you're standing on the road, it's called a typical section. The project beginning at State Route 310 all the way down to a point where, how far does it go? Right here?
The current project ends right about, yep.
There's the stream.
Yes.
There would be parking on both sides and two 12-foot lanes, curbs, curb and gutter, curb and gutter. A pathway on the north side and a sidewalk on the south side. Okay, so then we would match a project at the development, from the development that would be similar, or we would have this 550-foot gap. So the proposal here tonight is to extend the project to make the two projects match. Is there any questions so far? I wish I had better exhibits to work with, but we probably should have brought our old ones.
They
So-
have full-size printouts of your.
Okay. Okay. So, this of course comes at a cost. There's two primary things, and I sent an email to the trustees describing this with these exhibits. So there's additional engineering and there's additional construction costs. The additional construction cost was estimated by our consultant, Scott Haynes at Verdantis, to be $800,000 plus or minus $818,188.83. The additional engineering the proposal, which we thought was a fair proposal, is $80,331.25. So we had a meeting with ODOT, Trustee McKee, Nita, the developer, our consultant, and the developer's consultant, and there was a general agreement that there would be cost sharing for this gap. And the general agreement, and I hate to speak for anybody right now because there's still a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement, whatever legal document that your legal counsel decides you should have, about how the cost should be shared. But in general, the developer agreed to fund all or a part of the construction if the trustees funded the engineering. So that $818,000 cost estimate, I think that it needs to be reviewed. I think for sure the developer would want to review the construction cost estimate and then let the negotiation begin on how much that the developer would pay for the construction. At that time, we would get into a revised intergovernmental agreement with the township, the TID would, to revise the original agreement to include this additional work. If the trustees don't want to do this, I think what we would do is resurface that portion of the road and stripe it, but it wouldn't have a pathway or a sidewalk, and it wouldn't have curbs and gutters. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but there would be a 550-foot gap. One thing that I would like to say about this is kind of outside my purview. Go back to the original. The purpose and need or the spirit of the project was beautifying Pike Street and kind of making it a village center. I like this proposal. At first, I couldn't understand it very well and why we would want to do that. But now I see the wisdom in this. That little hook in the road and that abandonment of that piece of Pike Street will probably prevent Pike Street from becoming a cut through. Rather, the cut through would be the development itself. Having said that, it would be pretty circuitous if I wanted to make a left at that new intersection with the new traffic signal and go through the development. In the end, everybody does what their phone tells them to do on which way to go. So it'll be a matter of travel time to see what happens. But I can't imagine that there would be too many vehicles that would come through that signal, take a left, then take a right, then take another left and go on Pike Street. So I think it'll cut down on the traffic on Pike Street. Hopefully it will keep traffic on 40 and 310 where it belongs instead of Pike Street being a cut through. That abandoned section, we've talked about this, that is keeping that public right of way. There is that the area where there's the Route 40 marker, the historic marker? And we thought that that could be an access for anybody who wants to go and see that, but if we kept it a public access, it would be available for public viewing. I think that there's always an opportunity to abandon that section of road. When I was county engineer, there's a process that's not very difficult to go through to abandon public right-of-way if the maintaining authority sees no public use for the public right-of-way, they can abandon it. That would be an option to you. Again, this is kind of like talking about the development which is already being approved by Licking County Planning. So it's kind of outside my scope here, but I did want to make that comment that I really see value in the way this is laid out. With that, I'll take any questions.
I do have a question. I've always been concerned. We have trucks going through Mayflower. We've got trucks going down Lynch Road, which is a no outlet. Trucks are going to go down there. How are they going to navigate that sharp turn when they do get there? I I mean, isn't that a
Where
concern?
are we talking about?
When they turn into, they're gonna come in, they're gonna turn into that development, then you got that intersection before you go back up to Pike. Is that gonna be able to handle the large trucks? Because they will go down Pike.
I didn't review those plans, but I know that Licking County Planning has a set of design standards contained in their subdivision regulations that accommodates truck turns.
Well, I believe, I can be corrected if I'm wrong, that there was a variance granted on the radiuses of that where the streets or intersections are narrower. I don't know if it's at that intersection, but that'd be my concern, because while they shouldn't go down it, they're going to. And
I can't answer it. That's not,
shouldn't we be looking at that while we're looking at, because we're gonna have to deal with it, we should be looking at the whole picture, not just this section, let them figure that out.
well, that's under Licking County Planning's purview. That's not part of this project.
Right, but if we're gonna abandon that section, where if they did get in there, I understand you wanna try to minimize the cut through by not having direct access.
I probably shouldn't have brought that up because it's really not part of what we're doing. And I just brought it up and I shouldn't have, I guess. But this is a question for the county engineer and the Licking County Planning Commission. But I can tell you it's been approved by them. And I can tell you that the process requires looking at turning radiuses, and geometric design for truck turning radiuses have been around for 100 years. I assume that they met their own standards. I can't really answer to it because it's a different process. The approval of the plat and the engineering design is over with. I don't know if the township had a chance to review it. I assume you did, but it's not part of what we're talking about. Is all to the west of the tie-in location.
Right, but what's gonna be on there is gonna funnel into that. And the other question I did have is, I believe the prior plan had the sidewalks and that away from the road. It looks like this new one is at the road.
Did we get rid of the tree line? No, Scott. This has always been. The pathway has been. We got rid of the tree line.
The only place in some sections, and through here we have the tree lawn, through downtown, we got rid of the tree lawn to add the bike path.
Yeah.
My question is, when we discussed before, I had that kind of impromptu open house to kind of let people know that it was going to go to Morpsey, it was going to come back to the public to provide input in that. I'm a little concerned that we're doing all this design and we're going to do this and that before we've gotten that input from the public. So why are we doing more design that if it could possibly change, unless, I think it's a bad look to design everything, give it to the public, basically saying, this is what you're getting, your input doesn't mean anything. I think we're kind of getting this before that, no?
Well, we haven't progressed at all since then, for various reasons. We talked about a public meeting. I think we're ready for a public meeting.
Yeah, it's a process. I mean, you know, under the federal guidelines, we have to follow,
Oh, yeah.
so.
We had to get scoped by ODOT. That's what the thing was. When we got the federal money, ODOT scoping process, we had to go through that.
Right.
ODOT kind of comes in and takes over your business a little bit, and they're going to probably want to approve the process you have for public involvement. We're probably ready for public involvement now.
Yeah.
Should we do that before we decide on moving forward with this additional
I think that's up to you.
scope and design? And
That's up to you.
I mean, if we're going to move forward, it's a good deal that they're going to cover the costs and we're going to do the design or share with the design. But again, I'm a big believer in public input, doing what the people want, not telling them what they're going to get.
Well, it's not only a good idea, it's a federal requirement. So there will be an open house style probably, and everybody will get a chance for input on that. You know, this business about getting too far out ahead, that's a, you know, you got to do some, or you can't see what we're proposing. But you can't do too much, or if you do too much detail, you spend a lot of Scott's time in engineering details, and then we got to pay to redo it. So yeah, we've gotten to the point where we're ready for public involvement. I think we were close before, but we got the federal money and went through ODOT scoping, and then Actually, we wanted to get this settled too, because we should bring this to the public, this proposal as well, because this is now part of the project.
But are we gonna expend that 88,000 or 80,000 before that public hearing?
We won't spend it all. It'll be just like the rest of the project, is you'll spend enough of it so that everybody can see how it impacts their front yards. There'll be some rough cross sections drawn up. We won't spend the whole 80,000 because we will have to do some surveying so that we can do some basic engineering so that we can take it to the public just like the rest of the project. So, I'm to the point where I can't speak for the township and what the township wants to do, but I'm also to the point where I can't speak for the developer and how the developer wants to participate. I did mention some things that were discussed at a meeting. Really what happens now is between the township and the developer on what kind of cost sharing can take place. And I don't know if it's okay if Ron wants to say anything about the project, if you want to allow it.
Absolutely.
Hello, Ron Sabatino. Our company is the developer of the adjacent land. Can we bring up the other slide?
The one with your plan on?
Yeah, that one is perfect. So this gap exists because the first phase is coming down, and they started that even before, our plan was approved many years ago of how far that plan was going to go. And there are, I think, 3 parcels. If you'll see that creek crossing the road, there are 3 parcels east of it that we don't own. That are, I think they're large single-family houses that set back. Our improvements, although not shown, go to that dark line just west of that future pond, and then that is the remaining gap of where those 3 parcels are. I think that $80,000. I've looked at what has to be done there. Had a couple meetings with Mr. Lozier, with our engineer. I think that his requested fee is a fair fee. I think it allows him to spend some of it before you have a public hearing where you can bring more information, you have something to look at and have some public discussion. I think it makes sense to make the connection, at some year or decade in the future. It's likely that those homes evolve to different types of uses, like the village of Powell did, and it becomes a nice, different community. Competes with our retail that we're doing, but it becomes a nice village community setting. It's all walkable, so it makes sense to connect the bike paths. We've worked in many townships and cities, 80, 90 some. I would say that your township is relatively wealthy, probably one of the most wealthy ones certainly in Licking County. You've got revenue sources that are on a continuous, infinite annuity from the existing JEDs. You have revenues from the JED that we created as a statutory developer that I think we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars that came in this year. And you should use these monies for the public improvements that advance the community. We indicated at our meeting that we would help participate this. We have a TIF on our land, and we're studying, how much extra revenue we have to, after the sources that we've already agreed to are exhausted, that I would advance some amount of money to help fill the gap, and we would work with township to put it on our TIF, to include it in our TIF. It does not have to be in our property to be part of our TIF. It just has to be something that benefits our property, and to some degree, this benefits the property. We have no obligation to build this. We have no obligation to contribute to it, yet we're willing to do such and to sit down with the township, with the current and the future board, and work that out. So I suggest authorizing some level of expenditure so he can bring something to show the public for the public meeting. Thank you.
So just one question, just to be clear, are you saying that you're willing to participate in the construction costs contingent on the TIF inclusion, or that you would like to, but?
No, we're willing to participate at some level. I think that you have a new board, we'd like to see a little more cooperation, a little less, costly behavior. I will, not that it's on point here, but I will say in these 80-some communities that worked in the past, that almost all of them deliver the agenda the day before the meeting as well, Mark. So I think it's all cooperation, and we need your cooperation in order to bring this development forward that has been sitting for 4 years, as our other ones are, because the reviewers do not work for developers. Licking County Planning Commission, the county engineer, Southwest Licking, work for you, the township, not for me. They work for the township. We submit our plans, you send them over to the county, they work for the township. It has been helpful in trying to get all three of those that have been dilatory in their reviews, all three of them, as not on this project, but our other project in Refugee Road, set for 3.5 years, while they take 8 months to review plans, where most other places take 90 days. And we need this township and this future board and their administrator to help the developers to accomplish plans on a timely basis for things that you choose to approve. That's a request.
And I'd just like to correct on one thing. Townships share their agenda with the public usually the day before, some of them, but they don't withhold it from trustees. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sabatino.
Then Bill, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
On there, when you made the presentation, you said the cost was going to be borne by the developer, and then the design fees were going to be shared, is what I got. It sounds like it's a little different now. Maybe, is it the whole thing's up for share, or where are we at?
Yeah, I can't answer for how you negotiate with the developer. I can tell you that my takeaway at the meeting was that was in general the way it was going to be. But I can tell you this, that Ron at the meeting said that there's going to be some limitation to how much he contributes. And the place to start is to get a construction cost estimate to see how much the thing costs. Regardless of what happens, the negotiation that goes on right now between Ron and the township and the memorandum of understanding that you create, the intergovernmental agreement with the TID is going to say that whatever the cost of the project is paid for by the township. In other words, if there's a gap, we'll do our best to estimate it, you'll do your best to negotiate however much that the developer wants to give for construction, and then whatever's left, it has to be paid for by the township, along with the 20% matching federal funds. Let the negotiation begin, Mark. I still think it's a good deal. You said all along, I ended our project at the stream because your predecessor said that's where we need to end the project.
To have a gap was...
And so there's a gap, and then they developed their project and there was a gap. We were going parallel and there's a gap. We would have probably paid for it with this project anyhow. You know, maybe our ask of Morpsey would have been a little bit more, presumably to include this, so that's another way you could look at it. But here we are, you know, we have this thing, and that's why we got around the table with all the parties and tried to negotiate something equitable. Certainly the design fees would have already, you know, you would have had to pay for that either way. So, yeah, that's where we are. If the board decides not to do it, I think that we'll, you know, pave it, stripe it, and there'll be a gap. There'll be a gap in the pathways. You know, ultimately, and we've discussed this, and I think it was your idea, Mark, that we want to set this pathway up so that it ends at US 40, and then go for a grant and see if we can't get a bridge or a tunnel across to the new park.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and it sounds crazy, but drive down Route 16 and look at that pedestrian bridge that goes from the Y over to the OSU Newark. You know, it would not be unprecedented, and I think there's funding programs out there. And so there you go, you could connect your park to a nice downtown village center. So anyhow, yeah, it's unfortunate we got to be here talking about modifications, but I've never been involved in an engineering project where there wasn't modifications to contracts and scopes of work. So, any other questions?
Madam President, may I ask you a couple questions?
Yes, ma'am, please.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear. The engineering fees that you're talking about, they would be engineering for both this part of the Pike Street project as well as the development on the other side of 310. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
So it's not just engineering for this part of the project?
So it's both sides.
It's on both sides of
Because
310.
we started out
Right.
with both sides, but when they did the Morpsey fundings, it was just for that
Correct.
side.
We don't have funding
Correct.
for that
Correct.
second part,
For
but this
construction.
engineering is for
Yes.
that second part, includes for that
He is
second part.
continuing to design on the west side as well. I think we should take phase 1 to the public first.
Yeah.
And you got your survey in the can for both sides of 310?
Yes, we've already surveyed both sides of 210.
So I think probably we should hold the public involvement off on the west side. There is urgency here because we need to get this started and show some evidence that we're going to spend it, because we want to go back to Morpsey for phase 2, for funding for phase 2. If you remember, we tried the first time to get funding for phase 1 and phase 2, and it got rejected, and we were coached up to break the project into 2 pieces. And I said, I don't want to make an ask and do half of the project, and they said that that will benefit you when you apply for phase 2 funding if you show that you can accomplish phase 1. So they're on a 2-year cycle. We're probably, I haven't kept up with my Morpsey emails, and I don't know, and they send a lot.
They do send a lot.
I'm sure that we're down to about a year. I think what they've done so far in my emails is they set up the rules for the program for next year. So we'll be starting probably January to apply for phase 2. And, you know, I handled that for you guys last time. Rosalind, you attended those meetings as well. And I intend to do that again. So keep that in mind, but I do think we need to show progress on this.
So how much of the 80,000 is only for this gap section? You were saying that 80,000, all of it?
I
So
think
it's
what
not
Nina
for on
was
the west
saying-
side, it's only for the gap?
Correct, other than the required public involvement process that we have to go through for.
Was there some new ODOT requirements too for the whole
Correct.
project?
Yes. we have-
So, yeah, there's some cost in there. When this thing became an ODOT project, there were some other ODOT requirements that had to be accommodated.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Again, when we talk about the west side, I think we need to have public involvement early to see what they want and then kind of design it also.
Yeah. I
Again,
mean-
it seems like we're designing it and saying, here.
We can debate this, and we can do it either way, but I would advise you to put the effort in to getting this side ready for public involvement, because we have the construction funds.
Right.
And then, you know, get a clear idea of when we're going to construct phase 2, because you probably have to go back to the public. Everything will change if it's several years down the road. You should probably do your public involvement a little closer to construction. That's why I'm saying. It doesn't mean that we can't show some things at the same public meeting about phase 2. We just won't have as many details. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
You probably won't cut sections.
We're focusing our time on phase 1 first.
But again, Mark, it's up to you. I mean, we can talk about that. Anything else?
You have anything else?
No, I was just gonna say, I think part of the important part, and I know that it was important to me to be able to understand this part of the project, is the difference in the fact that this is a federally funded, this is an ODOT project, and so it has different requirements than the High Point, than
Yep.
Mr. Sabatino's project, which is it being controlled, approved, however you want to call it, by the county. And so they're just different timetables and different requirements. And I know for me, coming in and having to learn about the project and where did it stand and where did it come from and where is it going, it was helpful for me to be able to understand the differences between the two projects.
We're going to draft an intergovernmental agreement between the TID, and our attorney already started on it, that memorializes all of what we've talked about into that document as the what would we call it, a modification to the intergovernmental agreement that says what each party is responsible for. We've got a draft of that. I thought I would have it in my hands tonight to show the trustees, but for your next month's meeting, it would be great if you would have negotiated and gotten your MOU with the developer about this construction cost thing. And then right on the heels of that, you can sign the intergovernmental agreement so that we can continue work here. We can continue work, but it would be nice to get all this squared away so that we can start designing the thing in earnest and get public input and that sort of thing.
So tonight you're not asking for anything,
That's not up to me. I thought maybe that would be the case, but I see here that I don't know if there's a board action tonight or not. That's not my part of it. I see that I'm on here to give a presentation.
Yeah.
if you could, moving forward, if you could copy me on communication so I could be up to date on all this stuff. So when this comes to me,
Okay.
I'm prepared. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I would like to turn the meeting over to Nate Green with Scannell Development.
Good evening, trustees. Good to see you all. My name is Nate Green. I'm with the Montrose Group. It says I'm with Scannell Development, but I just represent them. I don't work for them. But what I'm here to talk about tonight is an update to that project. You all are very aware of that project. On 40 and Tollgate Road. There's the 43 acres in the kind of the northern part of that site that they look to develop. And we would like to talk with you about potentially entering into a development and compensation agreement between the trustees, between Scannell, and between Southwest Licking and Licking County, Southwest Licking Schools. You all were emailed, I believe, a copy of that today. So I don't expect you to have read it thoroughly. I don't expect, unless you really want to vote on it tonight, but I wanted to talk about that, present it to you, and then have discussions between certainly now and your next meeting. This development and compensation agreement, I hope, is similar to what you've seen in other developments that you've done. This would, part of what's being done here is that Scannell would enter this property into the JED. There's a JED that's already there for the FedEx facility. This would add that property to the JED. It would add any buildings that are built on the site into the JED. The employees that are going to be in those buildings would pay income tax to the JED. And then the JED distribution of those income taxes will be done in a similar manner that's been done already. And I can talk through that if you want, but it's done. It's already being done for FedEx. It's done for several other of your developments throughout the township. They've they're looking at potential development of several buildings on the site. They don't have this is speculative industrial development at this point. They could do, what they projected is they could do 500,000 to 800,000 square feet of development there. They projected that would create between 200 and 400 jobs over a 3 to 5 year period, which would create $9 million to $18 million in payroll, which would obviously benefit all the entities in the JED through the income tax and the distribution of those funds, the income tax to those entities. The other part of the development and compensation agreement is the approval of a tax abatement for the site, 100% 15-year tax abatement. That tax abatement, as you all are aware, in order to get that level of abatement, it has to be approved by the school district, by Southwest Lincoln Schools, which that has already been done. There's already an agreement, which I believe I sent to you, or you have. I think you got that last week. That agreement that's between Skinnell and between and the schools. The schools receive compensation through that agreement. They also would receive compensation through this agreement, through the JED, if you all are in agreement to that. I know there's been a couple things that have been discussed around, they've been working, Skinnell has been working with the county on the creek that's there and trying to figure out the issues there and getting that so I think there's some ponding there and things that are not good. They have been working with the county. The county has approved their plan, and they're working to mitigate that and make sure that issue with the creek that runs through there has been accepted and is not an issue anymore. As a matter of fact, we met with the county, I think 2 months ago, to talk about that, so they are aware of that. The other thing, and I know that this is something you've all talked about, it's something that I know that the residents near there are concerned about, is the sound barrier that's there. And there's been talk potentially of raising the sound barrier. There's been talk of what to do to help so that the sound is mitigated. I would say that it's cost prohibitive to raise the sound barrier. That is because it's already in place. It's difficult to do that, and it is cost prohibitive for Skinnell to do that. What you will see in the document is that, and it's in section 7F. Section 7, I think that's right. I'm gonna say that and then I'll probably be wrong. Yeah, it's section 7, which is miscellaneous under F. What we would propose doing is working with the property owners that are there to provide landscaping on their side of the sound barrier, to provide additional mitigation of that sound. That could be through landscaping of trees, bushes, whatever the case may be. To allow for an additional barrier there. And again, we would work with those residents that are there and talk to them about that and work for kind of commercially viable options for the landscaping for those properties. We understand that the properties they're right next to it, and so we want to make sure that that we work with them and they're hopefully properly taken care of. So with that, that's kind of what is in the development and compensation agreement. As I said, you just got this today. It would be our goal to come back at your next meeting and have you vote on this. If you're okay with that, we can certainly work on this between now and then and work on language. You can vote on it tonight if you want. I'd love that, but I understand, Trustee Evans, to your point, you just got it. So we're certainly happy to work with you over the next month or so and get those things worked out. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I have a question.
You can't.
Questions from the trustee.
Sorry.
I do have a question on here. There's an NCA on the other portion.
Yeah.
I don't think it mentions the NCA obligation in here for the new building.
Oh, and I believe, Mark, they would enter into the NCA if that's part of what the FedEx is. They would do the same.
Okay. And then, is there still a request from FedEx regarding modification of the JED to enter into a pilot because that was when I was speaking with Dan Harrington quite a while ago.
Oh.
They wanted to modify it so their employees did not have to pay into the JED, but that they would do a pilot instead. A payment in lieu.
You know, Mark, I'll check on that, but to my knowledge, that is not true, that they are actually paying into the JED. I don't believe
I know they are, but there was a desire to
Okay.
modify.
Yeah, and Mark, I don't know. I can check into that.
Okay, and then my question is, you're suggesting landscaping at the wall. The original plan required landscaping along that wall, so isn't this just what's required?
So, there's Scannell looked at putting landscaping on their side of the wall. And the challenge is that there's an easement with the sewer and water district that goes along that side. And the sewer and water district will not allow them to put trees or anything else on that side. The suggestion would be to work with property owners to put it on their side of that barrier, and provide that landscaping and the vegetation on
I
their
believe
side.
the building plans require, and I've always said it's too narrow of a setback, but trees and that between the wall and the property line, that 8 foot.
Sure.
That doesn't seem reasonable, but that's what was passed, and I believe,
Sure.
I don't know if Mr. Singleton can verify that, but that seems to be what you're suggesting, but on the residence property.
Correct. And again, the challenge is Scannell looked at putting it exactly as you suggest on their property, and they there's an easement there. There's a sewer and water easement that the sewer district said you can't put any vegetation there because it can eat into our.
Well, you're saying on their side, but I'm saying where it's required in the zoning that it be between the wall and the property line and that 8 foot.
Sure, and I think that's where the challenge is with the sewer and water district.
Oh, that's where the sewer line is?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
On the other side of it. And then have you looked into, it says commercially reasonable cost for landscaping. Have you looked at what the cost would be in suitable, trees, vegetation that would actually go in there for each property? Looking at like giant green arborvitae that go up to 30 foot. What is the cost to build a wall?
Yeah, what we put in there is it's $5,000 per property, but certainly we want to work with those property owners and figure out what makes sense.
So I'm saying, have you looked to see what an estimate is, or did you just choose 5,000?
Scannell has looked into that, Mark, and yes, that's what they've looked into is that.
Can you forward that information?
I don't have it, but I can ask for it, sure.
I personally think, this is a very important topic, the Scannell, but I think we should kind of maybe push it over to the new board that starts in January. I don't want to waste your time.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
As far as where we should go with this, to give us some more time as a new board. So that's what I would like to see happen.
Okay.
That's not up to me, it's up to the board. But,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other thoughts? Jeff?
I'm not gonna be here in another month or so.
Okay. All right.
I would agree with that. So I guess in the meantime, we can get information if you could have them provide.
We can do that.
what
Yeah, and I can provide it for you, Mark. Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all very
All right,
much.
sounds good. Thanks very much.
All right.
You too.
Thank you, Rosalind.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Mayor Begany regarding the intergovernment agreement for the Taylor Road interchange impact study. Hello.
Good evening.
Hello there.
Good evening, trustees. Thank you for taking some time. This is a project that's part of an ancillary project that we have no control over. I don't know how many of you are familiar in the audience. The Ohio Department of Transportation is looking to do a 70 interchange off Taylor Road Southwest, and kind of instead of going towards Walmart, it would actually go straight across over into Pickerington. That is scheduled right now, originally was scheduled for the 2030s, but right now they're actually aiming to have that in production as early as 2027 as part of a dual project with the 256 interchange. That's happening, assuming that they continue to get the funding, but based on everything that we've been told, they are going to get the funding. They've actually just gotten approval for the next step for engineering, right-of-way acquisition, things of that nature. So that is something that is happening regardless of anything else. However, I'm trying to find ways to think a little bit ahead of the game. If this is going to go into construction in 2027, we all know that there's an intersection at Taylor and Palmer that would basically be a choke point for traffic and issues in that area. So what I would like to propose for that is a traffic study with our engineering firm, EMH&T, one of the largest in Central Ohio. And their proposal would actually go through and study everything from 70 to Broad Street, including things like traffic counts, turning lanes, traffic lights, things that are very familiar with that particular thing. This would be in partnership, obviously, with Etna Township, Violet Township, Pickerington, Pataskala, ODOT, and MORPC to kind of look all the way through what the best options are. The funding plan that is presented to you is an agreement with EMH&T not to exceed $49,000. The city of Reynoldsburg is willing to pay everything up front. And then after all costs have been incurred, $16,000 reimbursement from Etna, which is basically that 1/3 of the cost, or I guess you could say geographically in that one particular area that would be there. This is not to do anything other than to figure out what are the best options. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I cannot say, is a roundabout the best option? Is it more just an expanded lane infrastructure? Whatever the case may be. Whatever EMH&T comes up with, and at that point, then it would be presented to all parties involved, multiple public hearings because of the fact of how this is going to impact the entire area in general. Then we would come together, and as a group, all of us would kind of agree about what it would be. And we will let people who are a lot smarter than me figure out what that construction schedule would look like. I don't know if it is in the best interest to start things ahead of time or wait until their project is done, or vice versa. However, it allows Etna and the city of Reynoldsburg to go ahead and start planning for budgeting purposes. So that way, when we look whether the construction would be in something in 27 or beyond, that we're planning out ahead of time to have a good relationship with that. I'm happy to take any questions. For everybody out there, if you're interested in looking at this, it is not the most exciting project that is out there right now, but it is on the Ohio Department of Transportation website. You can take a look at it. They are very generic examples right now. It doesn't get into the weeds specifically of everything, but it does give you a general idea. The best example that I could say is if you've ever driven over off of Diley Road and 33, that basically is what ultimately it will look like there as far as the Taylor Road into the Pickerington area. That kind of gives the best idea, but obviously a lot of things can change engineering-wise. Other highlights that I know that we've talked about in multiple meetings over the last couple of months with ODOT, as well as all the other stakeholders, pedestrian trails, things of that nature, bypass, so that way it would all be incorporated into the intersection portion, which then would obviously try to extend all the way out into that Palmer intersection. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I'm assuming due to this timeline, there's no urgent need right now to...
It only gets more expensive from here, so obviously when January 1 comes, then it becomes a question of what does the engineering firm decide the cost? Do they have cost increases, things of that nature? Do I think it would be a dramatic impact on everything? No, but at the same time, again, that's why I just wanted to get it to you now, so that way you have some time to take a look at it.
Okay. I just think we need to, as a township, do a more holistic approach. I tried to move forward master transportation study of the township, because to deal with things piecemeal, you're not really connecting everything. If it's going to get busier here, how's it going to flow and affect there? So I would like in the new board, and I've seen the other candidate indicate the same thing, that would be needed. So I would think, maybe we would go with something like EMH&T. They can combine it. If it's somebody else, doesn't make sense to have two separate. So I would almost like to put that off to let us look at having that master transportation study and then see what their recommendations are of join with that, or...
The only thing I would say is I know that ODOT is getting all of their information from MORPC that's taking into consideration all the impact of everything as a Licking County region, specifically because of Intel and all the other things ancillary around it. So my assumption is that EMH&T or any other engineering firm is actually already in the process of doing that, and that's where that information would come from. But I completely understand, you want to make sure you don't want to do the same thing twice.
Yeah, and definitely, I think we do need to plan infrastructure. That's been one of the major complaints about dealing with what's coming in. So we've got to deal with it, but I think, again, holistically instead of this, but maybe we can incorporate it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, before, what I don't want to do is I don't want all of a sudden to be 2026 and then all of a sudden we're getting around to it at that point. This is one of those few things. We all know that this is going to be a bottleneck. It's difficult as it is right now, let alone with development all the way up and down Main Street, everything else. But I defer to when you would like to do it, but wanted to get this in front of you as soon as I had the opportunity to. We had to wait until we had a kind of an idea from Morpsey what they were saying as far as when they're going to have all their traffic count information. Are there any other questions?
You said it was going all the way to Broad Street, this study was between,
Yeah, it's, with everything that's going construction-wise and development-wise, they wanted to take a look at anything because is there going to be traffic impacts from Intel coming off to Broad Street? Is it going to be something coming on in through Patasko, through Refugee and First Gate? Is it going to be going all the way down? So instead of doing it only just for that one specific intersection, that's why they wanted to look at everything all the way around to take into consideration what it would look like in 2028 and then beyond in 2038 based on everything that we have. And because this is something that's a little bit more at our latitude, we can actually make assumptions about what areas are development. So we would look at current zoning that is in Patasko, Reynoldsburg, Etna Township, based on what you have all presented as far as what could potentially go there in some point in the future. There's not a lot of room for development in this corridor, but at the same time, you don't know what's going to happen if people decide to. Once I think it gets known that everybody's going to, look at their property on that road and Taylor Road by an intersection, do they want to live by there? What happens at that point in time? So there'll be a lot of concerns and considerations, and we just want to make sure that we're ready for whatever could come our way.
say, it would encompass some of Pataska's property and their thing too. Like, would they be a participant in this?
They would be, but we're taking up on the cost for it because it doesn't really impact, because right now we pretty much control and maintain the road on Taylor Road all the way to Broad Street, so that's something that we have anyway. So that's why we don't necessarily have them included as far as a cost-sharing partner. However, I'm a big believer in trying to get as many people around the table as possible, so that way whatever we do at 70 and Taylor or Palmer and Taylor, now all of a sudden that's going to impact it, Maine and Taylor, and then on all the way. It's better to have everybody sitting around to make sure we all know what's coming and how we can prepare for it.
And to refresh the board's memory, that MS Consultants, I think it was $43,000 for township-wide transportation study in that. So that's where I'm saying maybe we should look at the comprehensive to include that.
How long ago was that?
That was the last couple of years ago.
That was last year. I brought it to the board.
Okay. Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had to put a lot of pause on that because of probably when it was started, it was just at the beginning of Intel.
The board just turned it down. They didn't take it up.
It was before Intel.
Okay, all right, yeah, I was gonna say, because that probably, everything that they thought they had done, they probably had to throw in the trash and start from scratch, so. But at any time you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any point in time after the first of the year or prior to if you have any further questions. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Hanson, do you have anything on that?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Okay, we can now go ahead and move over into public comments, please. Please come up to the podium, state your first, last name, and address for the record.
Everybody shy?
Sarah Ferguson, 43 Ballman Road. So as far as the Pike Street development, my input on it would be that I do like the idea of having the bike paths and the sidewalks. So whatever the township can do to help the residents with having those type of amenities, I think that they should do. Especially if, we have the money, I think it's something to give back to the community. In regards to Reynoldsburg Mayor Joe Bagne's speech, personally I think that would be a great idea to be included and be a part of that study, just from going to that area and seeing the development that's happened in that area and the projects that have happened down Main Street, the big overhaul that has happened from replacing all of the sewer and fiber optics lines. That was a huge undertaking that government institution took this year. So I think that having that experience would be very helpful for the township. just after hearing what he had to say. Because it is that 70 interchange that's coming is gonna be a huge deal. I'm extremely excited about it, so I don't have to go by Walmart traffic or go all the way up to 310, because Etna extends all the way to Taylor Road, and I think people forget that there are huge parts of Etna that is in Reynoldsburg School District. And I think that a lot of times maybe the township forgets that how big the township is, and making sure all of its residents in all areas are accounted for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments tonight? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. Okay, I would like to move to go into executive session per Ohio Revised Code 121.22. G1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official license, or regulated individual, specifically the investigation of charges or complaints against an official or the individual. Okay, official, and the time is now 7:07. I invite the session. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So that was Jeff. Okay, I would like to invite executive session, the all trustees, please, as well as our attorney, Julie Donnan, into executive session. Is there a second? Which you did. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, the time is now 7:07. I move to come out executive session, and the time is, what is that, 8 o'clock? Wow. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, Ms. Miriam?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. For the record, 3 trustees, myself, Mr. Evans, and Mr. Johnson, and also our legal counsel, Julie Donnan, was in executive session. Okay, I would like to turn the meeting over to, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Resolution. The Board of Trustee of Etna Township, Licking County, Ohio, met in a regular meeting on November 21st, 2023 at 81 Liberty Street, Etna, Ohio, for the following members present. Again, myself as Rosalind McKee, Jeff Johnson, and also Trustee Evans. I, Rosalind, would like to move Resolution 23-11-21, 0, would that be 01, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. To the following, to make a recommendation for on August 31st, 2023, the Board of Trustees of Etna Township, Licking County, Ohio, received an employee complaint against a trustee submitted by the Township Administrator. Attached hereto as Attachment 1 and incorporated hereon by reference the complaint. And upon receipt of the complaint, the board authorized the chair, myself, to do an independent third-party investigation to conduct an investigation into a complaint to determine the trustee engagement in conduct to the violations of the township's policy procedure or violations applicable for the Ohio law. I would like to make a motion to move that we would put a resolution in place to prevent Trustee Evans to contact Ms. Hanson, but she would work with Trustee Johnson if there's any, let's see, we would work with Trustee Johnson for any kind of
I just read out the whole resolution, Rosalind.
Yeah.
At the bottom, I'd start at the bottom, go from there.
we were putting Trustee Evans as a mediator, as a third-party mediator for Nita.
Sorry, you said
Trustee Johnson for the mediator for Ms. Nita Hanson regarding the complaint.
So, Trustee McKee, Van.
Yes, please.
I believe the motion would be to, so you don't have to read the entire resolution.
Okay.
So I think at this point, since you've given kind of the background and discussion, you can move to adopt resolution number.
Okay. So I move to adopt resolution 2311-2101. Is there a second?
Second.
Just
add as presented.
Yes.
as presented. Okay.
So this will put Johnson in as a mediator between.
Is that where we
Hanson
would?
and Mr. Evans, is that what this is doing?
So it would be the resolution, the number
Yeah.
as presented.
So 2311-2101.
I'm just trying to figure out what the resolution is doing, but, okay.
Well, I guess what I was trying to figure out too, as I read it, we've never done one of these before, and so they haven't either, so we're just trying to figure out a way. So,
Do you have a second on that?
I second it.
All right, so Rosalind
And-
Joyce seconded.
yes. Do we still go into discussion, or no? Do we can still go into discussion? Okay. So is there a discussion?
I have a question. Our legal counsel said I should abstain from this. I had asked that if any action be taken, that I be given an opportunity to get a second opinion. Obviously, that's not being given. I participated in the executive session. Is your advice that I can participate in discussion, just not vote? Since I've already participated in discussion in executive session.
My advice would be if you're abstaining from the vote, then you abstain from the discussion on the motion.
In public, but I could participate in executive session. That doesn't make sense, does it?
We discussed in an executive session the nature of the discussion out there. There were additional items absent and a part of the resolution.
So basically, I can't say anything, you want to silence me and then do this. That doesn't seem right. And that's why I asked for this to be delayed, if any action, so I could get a second opinion.
I'm only providing you with advice.
Okay.
My advice would be, because there's a potential for conflict of interest, my advice would be that you abstain from discussion and abstain from voting. Whether or not you take that advice is your own prerogative as trustee, obviously.
All right, just doesn't make sense. You can participate in discussion there, but not in public.
And we'll walk through that in the executive session.
Hmm.
Roll call, Ms. Tierney.
Mr. Evans, you abstain?
I would have liked the legal counsel, but I guess I'll abstain.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Now, I just want to be clear, so, because I hear a lot of moaning and groaning out there. No, I want to be clear on this whole thing.
You don't hear
No,
me.
no, well, why did you say anything then?
I didn't,
Okay.
I just went.
No, you're fine, but let me just be
No,
clear.
I don't really want to
Let-
hear your opinion.
Well, you know what? There's the door right there if you don't want to hear it, okay? I am running a meeting, okay? I live here just like you do, okay? I know you don't like me, but you don't know me, but I'm
Yes,
going
I do.
to.
I do know
No,
you.
you don't know me. You think you know me. You don't know me, okay? No, you don't. No, you know. No, you don't, okay? So let me just make it clear. Let me make it clear here tonight, please, okay? Out of respect. we had to do what we had to do as a board to protect this township. Okay? We can be sued. And that's why we chose to do what we did here. Okay? Either you want to be sued or you protect your township. I care about my township. I live in this township. Okay? I've lived here for 20 years. I love Etna Township. I want to protect the township. And I also want to protect the employee at the same time. If this was me, I would want the protection as well. So I respect what we're doing here. So that's why we did what we did. Thank you.
And on the record, Ms. McKee stopped the investigator from talking to me, stopped the investigation before it concluded, one-sided.
Mrs. Donnan, can you speak to that, please?
I prefer not to. I
Okay.
don't have anything in particular to say in terms of.
So I would just be clear. I did not stop the investigation. Okay, he's always a victim. He always lies to people on social media, and you guys believe him. Okay? So.
I'm not on social media.
Oh, well, that's good
Yeah,
to hear.
I
Thank
hear
you.
you are.
No, ma'am, I wish you respect me. I'm serious. Stop it. I mean that. Stop it. I just want to say, and I know you guys come here just to stir up stuff. Stop it. Come for reasons to bring something positive to the township, not negativity. Okay, it's not good to do this.
I don't need reprimand.
Okay, well then stop doing what you're doing then.
Well, you too.
No,
Because-
wait a minute, ma'am. I am the chair of this board. I have the right to conduct the meeting here.
Carry it on.
Okay, please stop it.
Then quit finger pointing.
No, I'm not finger pointing. I talk with my hands. I've always have. Okay, that's what I
Stop
do.
talking with your hands.
No, I'm not going to do
Well,
that.
then I won't have to.
Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on. But I want to say this to be clear as a board. I did not stop the investigation.
I don't believe you.
Okay, that's fine. I need you to, ma'am, please stop. The investigator, the attorney that was hired by our law firm that represents the township, contacted Mr. Evans over 15 times to reach out to get his opinion on the investigation. He refused. He told her that he would meet with her after January. So this is why the investigation stopped. So that's the truth right there.
I'm sorry, can I have an opportunity to tell the truth? The investigator
Okay,
said
so we're gonna move
her
on.
schedule was in a trial until mid-December
Okay.
and mentioned January. And Ms. McKee told our attorney to end it end of this month. So they concluded it without even talking to me. And I didn't even get a response from the attorney after the reply to her. Almost 2 weeks ago. So Ms. McKee did end this.
Okay.
One-sided investigation.
Let's move on to, turn the meeting over to our administrator, Ms. Nita Hanson. Thank you, Julie. Have a wonderful evening.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, same to you.
May I go to?
Yes, ma'am, please.
I think the mic's still on there. Might want to check, make sure the mic's still on.
I turned it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I caught all that.
If it's not, you just have to turn it on and off, Rob. Is it still on?
Is it on?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, I wanted to start with a discussion about State Issue 2. Voters approved State Issue 2 authorizing and regulating the possession, use, and sale of recreational marijuana and cannabis products effective December 7th of 2023. The new sections of the Ohio Revised Code related to this topic authorize the Board of Trustees to adopt a resolution to prohibit and limit the number of adult-use cannabis operations within the township. I mention this now only as a suggestion for future consideration of adopting a resolution should this board determine that limiting or prohibiting adult-use cannabis operations would be wise. I circulated an invite that came from Shelley Marie. Oh, there you go. From Shelley Marie for a Fairfield County economic update on Thursday, December 7th. If any of you would like to attend, I'd be happy to send your RSVP. I've already RSVP'd for myself, but if anyone else wants to go, I'm happy to send in your RSVP. The Ohio Township Association Winter Conference is scheduled for February 7 through 9. The cost of registration is $125 per person. I recommend that each of us attend, as well as Mr. Burkholder and Ms. Catuno. Based on some of the available workshops, there is value in having Mr. Singleton and Mr. Copley attend as well. I'm asking you to approve registration for all 9 of us. There are also some optional events. There's a quote-unquote newbie reception. There's a legislative reception, which I would like to attend. There's a casino night and a luncheon with keynote speaker Marty Brenneman. There will also be charges for parking each of the 3 days. So if each of us attend the conference, as well as all optional events, and pay individually for parking for the 3 days, which would be about $100, the total cost for all 9 would be $2,835. I'm asking that you authorize up to 9 attendees to the OTA 2024 Winter Conference, including parking, for a cost of up to $315 per person, not to exceed a total of $2,835.
Motion to approve that amount that would not exceed the, what is it,
$315 per person, and a total amount not to exceed $2,835.
Roseanne, if you just do so move that.
Yes,
I'll
okay.
put that motion in the record.
So to make it easy, okay. Also move to make a motion.
I'll second. Regarding discussion, I'll register myself. I'm not sure what events I'm going to go to.
Okay, very good.
And I think, I'm not sure if Mr. Burkholder already registered or not, so he could be reimbursed if he did.
Yeah, I think all of us, I haven't registered myself yet, so I don't know if it's, you can register and then submit payment, or if you have to submit payment and then we'll be reimbursed. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Payment at the time of registration.
Payment at the time of registration, okay.
So then we should be reimbursed?
Yes.
So I should sign up myself and then you're reimbursed?
You want to call?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
The OTA has a new program for 2024. It is a township webinar subscription. All active and affiliate members of the township will have unlimited access to all OTA webinars for a one-time fee of $250. In the 7 months that I have been with the township, I've attended a number of OTA seminars and the total fees have been over $100 just for me individually. Given that all of our active and affiliate members would use the unlimited subscription, it would seem to be a great value if you are inclined to approve the purchase of the OTA webinar subscription of $250.
I'll move.
I'll second. Discussion?
Can we open this up to the fiscal officer-elect too, or do they, there's restrictions on who you can share this with.
Yes, so we've already been working on having her accepted as a township affiliate, a township member.
Okay.
So I would expect.
We just don't want to violate their, just
Yes,
to make
no.
sure.
And she would, there wouldn't be any way to violate because either she can get into the website or she can't. And so that's a permission.
Right, we talked to another trustee that's over that, so they were able to set that out. Thank you.
I think we need a vote.
Yep. Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Copley and his crew spent the better part of the last 2 weeks involved with paving projects on Palmer Road and Etna Parkway and Heritage Drive. They spent many hours and the roads really look great. Thank you for all that you do. Mr. Evans asked that Mr. Copley measure the sight distance at the intersection of Palmer and Tollgate. Mr. Copley's measurements were that the bushes and trees at the intersection interfered with the appropriate sight distance. The homeowner trimmed the offending bushes and removed one tree, but disputes the measurement as to the other trees identified. I asked the county engineer's office to confirm Mr. Copley's measurements. While the engineer is confident that the measurements are correct, he requires a request for engineering assistance to determine whether the trees violate the site distance requirements, creating a safety concern. I'm asking that you authorize submission of a request for engineering assistance, which will need a minimum of 2 trustee signatures.
No, that's free.
Yeah, there's no charge or anything.
I'll move.
Thank you.
Second.
And I do have a question on, because we dealt with this at New England Acres at the previous board, where they were going to cut down all the trees, but it allowed for the site distance. If you remove the branches to 10 foot, the trees can remain. Is it because of how they're situated and the proximity to each that they're blocking and that's not adequate, or?
Yeah, so the trunks of the trees themselves.
Yeah, the actual trees, the limbs are just getting, they're growing and getting bigger, and it's obstructing the view.
Right. Well, that's what, I got that complaint from a resident saying it was dangerous, so that's why I forwarded it.
It is.
And then as far as the bushes, they would just have to maintain a lower height. We'd have to monitor.
They're keeping up with the bushes, but the trees are just too big and they're too
And I can understand why they have the bushes there, because the cars turn and keep the lights off the house.
The property owner is an engineer and he just disputes.
Yeah.
He's done his own measurement, and so we're sort of at an impasse and we can't move forward unless we have, the support of the engineer.
Yep, I agree.
Roll call. Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
And I have that ready. We can sign it after the meeting. We had a resignation from our road crew, and I'm asking your approval to advertise the opening on the road crew using Indeed. There's no charge to post a position. If we're not able to hire a great candidate soon, we may need to consider contracting some of the snow removal, but hopefully we're going to get great candidates and we'll get the position filled quickly. For now, I'm only asking for authority to advertise the open road crew position on Indeed.
Why not?
I'll make a motion that we-
Working with the road crew
I'll motion that we advertise on Indeed as you described for a road crew position.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I did have one question in discussion. We've had several individuals that have applied in the past that didn't accept or didn't. Has any thought been to contact them and let them know that there's a position open, or see if they'd be willing to?
So I'm working with Mr. Copley. I know there's one candidate who has expressed interest in returning to the township. We have concerns about, considering someone who has left us before. But I haven't reached out, and I mean, that's a good thought. Bubba and I can talk to others who had expressed interest. I don't know that we know that any of them are still available.
Well, I thought there was one that we called, and that's the one you called, reached out to Mr. Evans, that you had a conversation with, that we were.
Right, that had the concern about pay and all that before we adopted the union, and he wasn't told about all that stuff, and then he declined. Yes, I know that one.
Is he still available? So we're just,
Yeah,
like you said,
we'll work on
see
that.
what happens.
Yeah, we'll work on that. We
Okay.
just need to have sort of a broader scope
Sure.
of advertising, but we
What was
can
the point
certainly
of that?
make individual contacts.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Thank you. On November 17th, I conducted performance evaluations and meetings individually with Laura Brown and John Singleton. I provided each of you the narrative that I prepared for those evaluations. Laura Brown has been employed by the township since May 24th, 2004, 19 years.
Wow.
It's amazing. Her last evaluation was done by Jeff Johnson on June 7th, 2022, and at that time she received a pay increase. Laura's current pay is $23 per hour, and it is substantially lower than comparable salaries reported in the MORPC 2023 Salary and Fringe Benefits Survey. I recommend a 1.3% cost of living increase together with a merit increase of 7.5%, which recognizes her many years of service and the many roles that she plays here at the township, for a new rate of pay of $25.02 per hour, beginning with the next pay period.
I would like to make a motion for the pay increase for Laura Brown, our secretary of the township, effective on next pay. Is there a second?
Second.
Next pay, let's make that a clear date, please.
Okay.
So the new pay period started,
It ends this week, right?
so, yeah, it ends on the 25th. So do you want to start it on November 26th?
That would be, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then as far as discussion, I'd asked for an executive session to discuss this, which I believe all employee reviews, evaluations, and should do. It's not appropriate to try to either silence a trustee or force the discussion in public. I have numerous questions about, it appears that the evaluation report was done in July by maybe the employee themselves. And then it was just handled now, but I do have serious concerns about this. So I would move to table this until we have a proper executive session to discuss this appropriately.
It says 11/17/23 on here.
I think Laura prepared her part in July. At that time, I was newer to the township and getting involved in what was going on, and so that was just a delay on my part to conduct my part of it, which was just done.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. I think it's appropriate that we have an executive session so we can discuss this stuff.
You need a second on this motion.
Is there a second on Mark's motion?
Because again, what you're trying to do is silence me or force me to discuss the private, what should be private in public. And that's not right.
So died for lack of a second. So roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
John Singleton has been employed with the township since March 20th of 2017, nearly 7 years. His last evaluation was done by Mark Evans on March 31st, 2022. At that time, he received a pay increase of 7.15%. John's current salary of $53,575 is below comparable salaries reported in the MORPC 2023 Salary and Fringe Benefits Survey. I recommend a 1.3 cost of living increase together with a merit increase of 7%, which also recognizes his nearly 7 years of service in the various roles that he plays in the township, for a new rate of pay of $58,025, beginning with the next pay period on November 26th.
I'll make a motion for the pay increase for Mr. John Singleton, effective November 26th. For a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Again, we should have executive session, but this review, I've never seen one that is all 10s and 1 9. That it's just not proper, and the goal for improvement is to survive the next 2 years. These reviews are
Those
just
were not my comments.
These reviews are just riddled with, I think, inappropriate evaluations, and again, this should have been discussed in there. I've attempted to have numerous executive sessions to discuss issues with employee performances and stuff like that has been refused by the board president, vice president. So again, I won't say any more, but this is not appropriate.
So what you reference are the employee's own evaluation. My evaluation is contained in my narrative report. It recognizes the depth and breadth of experience and ability that Mr. Singleton has. It also recognized and commented on some issues for improvement on his performance. Specifically, one of the goals that we have implemented is for John to have a half day each week, at least a half day each week, devoted to being out in the township to actively pursue and look for potential violations. I have appreciated how he approaches violations. When he needs to be tough, he's tough. And when the situation calls for compassion, he's compassionate. And I've appreciated that about him. But my narrative conveys all of those things, both positive and negative, that we've discussed, and improvements that we've talked about. So I think that my narrative is a fair evaluation.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Marion.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
I attended the school district board meeting on November 16th. Among other things, the board approved the purchase of 9.77 acres across Watkins Road from Pataskala South Fork Elementary for $650,000. They have 45 days to complete the required soil and wetlands studies. Although there wasn't any discussion about their intended use for the property, we're kind of wondering if it's going to be the new bus garage, just because it gives them twice the space that they have now, and it makes sense to have it over there. But that all remains to be seen. One of our sheriff cruisers needs repair for an oil leak, exhaust leak, and brake. The estimate for repair is $5,915.02. These are repairs that were recommended by Lieutenant Carson when I called him and said, we have this estimate. Is it your recommendation that the cruiser be repaired, or is it time to consider taking it out of service? And he said, no, it's a newer vehicle, and he recommended repair. Jeff asked me to get an estimate for engine replacement, so I have also provided you that estimate of $14,178.35. I'm asking you to authorize the repair estimate of $5,915.02.
Okay.
I'll move.
I'll go ahead and second.
I do have a question. How many miles are on the cruiser? It doesn't state on the,
I don't think I know the answer to that. If it's not on the estimate, I don't know that.
This is only to approve the 5,000, right?
I'm sorry?
This is only to approve the 5,900.
59.
That's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I inquired about the engine, thinking that why they had the engine out, and they would just swap the engine, but that was considerably more expensive.
Roll call.
I would just ask in the future that the mileage be included on these estimates so we can gauge the age, the use of the vehicles and stuff like that.
Sure. If I had known that ahead of time, I could have got it, but Lieutenant Carson was highly recommending the repair, and it wasn't something on my focus for the estimate, but.
That is on the Ford, right?
I'm sorry?
That's on the Ford, right? On the old one.
Yeah, it's not, it's not one of the new ones, they're not,
Do we want to find out the mileage on it? Because, if it's a gas and you're pushing 200, 300, maybe an engine, it's a lot cheaper than a brand new one, but without knowing the mileage, if it's 50,000 miles, you're not going to replace.
Nita, was the mileage on the email?
I don't think so, because I think the email literally just forwarded the estimates.
Because although the additional cost is $8,200, if it really extends the life of it, where a new vehicle is what are we paying, like 50, 60,000?
Well, and the one thing about it is that if you look at the estimate, it kind of included fixing the thing over there on, as part of that. You never really changed that 3144 for the seal, and that's all.
Well, you got main seal, but that's not the engine, that's the axle.
The only thing I would say is that, you know, our cruiser is sitting there at Maverick Motors, and it's not gonna, there's not gonna be any repair to it until it gets approved.
That's why I said we gotta take the whole motor out and get to it or whatever.
I think you took your transit.
I don't know. That's why I didn't know exactly, because it didn't say, like, if you made this number here on the thickness thing, he just needs the same number there.
Yeah.
So, and he has a rear seal on it as part of it, but maybe that's not much money to do that at that point. It's taking motor in and out, it's so expensive.
Do we want a roll call or do we just want
No, go ahead, roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
The park committee had a site visit at the property. We had great weather to walk all around and see the various parts of what is going to be our great park. The surveys have been distributed via our listserv. It went to the HOAs, and it's on our website. We've received to date 174 electronic responses and 1 paper response. For any paper responses, we're putting them into the SurveyMonkey so that the responses will be included in the compilation. In addition, Win Waste will be mailing a paper copy to our residents who receive paper communications from them. So please encourage everyone you know to complete the survey in one form or another. And I wanted to give Mr. Evans an apology because I know at our last meeting you specifically asked about making the PDF fillable. I didn't make that note and I simply forgot. And so I apologize that I didn't have that detail taken care of.
I did it and I distributed it online.
Great.
Hopefully that'll help.
As far as I know, nobody has used that form to make a reply, but it'll be easier if they choose to, for sure. The JED and JEDZ boards met last Friday. The reported financial distributions for the third quarter of 2023 to the township from JEDZ 1, which is the Prologis, is generally Prologis, was $93,907.81. The distribution to the township from JEDZ 2, which is Amazon, was $970.24. The distribution from JED 1, which is Uline, it was $34,145.09. And that JED is expected to have substantial increases next year as Uline comes online as an active employer. JED 2, which is Core 5 Southgate, was $5,841.30. The Cubes West, which is Kohl's, was $2,418.85. The Cubes East, which is Ryder and Loves and those properties, $8,904.08. JED 7, which is the Skinnell property, $46,288.05. Together, all of the JEDZs and the JEDs, the third quarter total distribution to the township was $392,475.42. Likewise, the distributions to the schools were similar from JEDZ 1. The Southwest Licking School District received in the third quarter of this year $93,907.81. From JEDZ 2, the net after debt reduction was $176,197.22. From JED 1 was $25,729.43. From JED 2, $5,479.61. From JED 3, $1,842.94. And from JED 4, $2,785.78 for a total distribution to Southwest Licking Schools for the third quarter of $305,942.79.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was told in years past the township offices and garage have been closed on Thanksgiving Friday. The employees take paid time off or vacation or no pay if none is available. Bubba has confirmed that there's no union concerns with continuing this practice. And should you choose to close the operations on Thanksgiving Friday, we would send notice of the closure to the listserv and post it on the website. As with any time that the township is closed, Mr. Coakley will be available to handle any emergencies, and I'm also scheduled to be in town and would be available to assist with emergency needs. So I would ask you to consider closing township operations for Thanksgiving Friday.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Will you still be able to get time sheets and everything?
Yeah, we'll get timesheets tomorrow.
Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Thank
Before
you.
you move away, Mrs.
Yes.
Hanson, I just wanted to thank you for going over the JEDs and the JEDZs, the funds that are available, that are in those accounts. I don't think in the previous board that they really gave that information. So I want to let you know that I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
It really matters, so we'll at least know what's going on.
Thank you.
But I'd like to say it would be helpful to have that in printed form. That's a lot of numbers, a lot of figures to just be.
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to send it to you.
I've requested. So.
So I just want to say in closing, first of all, if you need anything, reach out to me. I'm here for you, but I wish you and everyone you love an amazing Thanksgiving celebration. And if there's anyone who doesn't have any place to go, you're welcome at Hanson House. So we never want anyone to be by themselves. So please let me know if you need a Thanksgiving dinner. We'd sure love to have you.
She means it too. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
There's 60 of us.
Oh, boy. It's a little bit much.
We'll make it happen.
60 of them is. Hey, Kat, Jack, you guys got 60, we got 75.
I think there's 60. It keeps going and going and going.
It's good. Okay, we'll move over into new business. Resolution 23-11-2102. I move resolution accepting the amount and the rates as determined by the Budget Commissions and authorizing the necessary tax levy and certifying them to the county auditors as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Is this the road and bridge levy that we're contacted about possibly suspending, or if we wanted to, we'd have
It's
to?
the road and bridge levy, it's the real estate taxes, and it's
Is
the road
it?
and bridge regular rates.
It's too late, you have to do the suspension. If you want to suspend it,
Right.
suspend it earlier
Yeah.
in the year.
I just don't think we should, but yeah, that's good. All right.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I will turn the Loop Road school bus stop over to Mr. Evans.
Okay, a little confused because Ms. Hanson took this over and didn't include me. However, from what I've seen, the recommendation, I think we should have an engineering assistance request to install a T turnaround after discussion with, I think his name's Ryan Brown, with the school transportation department, the director. I did see Ms. Hanson did a site visit and is suggesting possibly moving a South Central utility pole and allowing a turnaround in there. I've looked, I think that's gonna be problematic, the same as before, getting stuck. I think we should make it easier for the school bus drivers, especially since they're having such a hard time getting drivers. We don't want them nervous, possibly getting in the ditch and that. Putting that T at the end, I think would be the most most viable solution for ongoing matters. And I know the residents here that kind of initiated this, Mr. Eric Rager, so I'd kind of like to hear from him if you have after what you have to say.
Well, that would not be my decision, but I'm happy to tell you. I mean, once I understood, once you brought the issue to my attention, I just started doing an investigation to find out what possibly can be done. When I did the site visit, Mr. Brown was there on behalf of the school district, and he had what he described as his best bus driver out there on the Friday before. I determined, let me back up, because I first spoke to Mr. Brown on the phone, who told me on the phone and reiterated to me in our meeting that he does not believe that it would be fiscally responsible for the township to pay the amount of money that it would take to make any change to the road. It was very important to him for me to convey his concerns about that. But we were talking, and I said, well, I can see that the homeowner has made improvements to his driveway. And he said, well, there's this pole. And so we went out, we were taking a look at it, we determined, I found out, I thought it was an AEP pole, I found out that it was a South Central Power pole. Got in touch with the proper person at South Central Power. He met us out there with Mr. Brown at the site, and they are willing to move the pole, move it down far enough that Mr. Brown said, if you move it down equal to this tree, my bus can turn around.
At no cost?
And that would be it. So he said because of the age of the pole and the safety issue that sort of creates, and the possibility that it would just, and maybe at some point get knocked down anyway, they're willing to move it at no cost to the township.
Nice.
So Bubba might have to build up the berm a little bit with some berm material. Okay, I might have some technical name, but Bubba might have to build up the berm a little bit. But it looks like that it would be an option that would solve the problem. I guess we won't really know until they start running the bus out there to pick up the children. And so that's why I said in my email, I'm not suggesting that we not go forward with obtaining the engineer's estimate, because those things typically take some time to happen. And then, once you get the engineer's estimate, then as a board, you can determine, is it fiscally responsible to pay however much it's going to take to make changes to the road, purchase right away, do whatever needs to be done. But in the meantime, a shorter term and a faster solution is going to be for South Central to move the pole and start bringing the bus in.
Okay, my concern with that is...
Let me tell you just one other thing, I apologize. The other point that Mr. Brown wanted to make, that he made to me both over the phone and in person, is that the distance that the children walk, it is a shorter distance than many of the children in the district have to walk, and it's within the allowable distance by the school.
Right, but if you look at the Safe Routes to School initiatives and their recommendations, you got to take into account, is it lit, is there sidewalks there, and there is none, it's a rural road. I think the concern is the safety here, and I'm not sure if Mr. Brown actually knew what the cost would be, but that's where I think we need to get this. My concern is, you said their best bus driver did it, and it was okay, not taking anything away from any other bus driver, but you're going to have new bus drivers. You're going to have, fill-in bus drivers that aren't familiar with that. So I don't think we should try to do the bare minimum and just get it through. I think that we should move forward with this engineering request, see what the options are. I already talked to the engineer. He said the option for the 5 foot that Mr. Brown originally suggested is not an option, of adding it to the width. The T is the most economical. Other areas in the township have had that done. Lynn's Road has a little bus turnaround too. But as far as being within that distance, I just don't think that we should kind of quibble if it's going to help keep the kids safe, especially with it getting darker sooner, winter, sharing that road with cars. And we don't know in the future how many kids are going to be on that road to be serviced, so.
So I would only say that I never driven a bus, so I have no idea. But since it was the director of that part of the schools that was telling me that he believed that if this was done, that might take care of the issue, that it's certainly a solution that he would like to try, because he just doesn't recommend that the township spend the money that it's going to take to improve the roadway.
Did you say how much it would be?
No, I don't think he has any idea. I think he just assumes that because the improvement to the road is going to be a large amount of money.
Well, I think we should determine what that cost is. And
totally agree.
Again, the safety of the kids and that. And I did speak to a school board member that said she believed the policy was that the buses should not be backing up like that. So she did have a concern there. So, and I don't know, I'd like to have the resident say a few words.
Come up, sir. That'd be great.
Can I start off by saying I tried to avoid getting the township involved at all
No,
costs?
you're fine. It's okay. That's what we're
That's what we're here for.
On my
You're
own.
That's why we're here.
I'm actually a bus mechanic for Coda,
Oh,
so
okay.
I mean I know about buses myself.
Okay.
The guy
Okay,
from
I'll
Ryan,
get first and last name for the record.
Eric Rager.
Okay.
Ryan Brown, who I've been speaking with, before I brought this to the township, you know, the driveway was improved by me or whatever. I had it fixed. He came down, backed the bus in, told me it wasn't going to be feasible. Previously, they had used my neighbor's driveway, which is that the plans are to do a
T.
Well, the T, it would be up there, but something prior to the T or whatever.
There was a 5-foot widening of the road on the east side, but that's not a viable option.
I got you. Anyways, prior to all this, Ryan Brown came back at me and told me I needed a 40-foot wide driveway in order to back the bus in. So that's sort of why I'm bringing it here, because it seemed like we were butting heads and nothing was getting anywhere. I know I reached out to Bubba quite a few times and talked to him. We tried coming up with a solution that maybe just adding some gravel at the end of the road for a temporary solution or a permanent. I brought that up to Ryan. He wasn't happy about it, didn't want to move forward with it. I mean, I would like to go forward with what Mark has for requesting for the engineering to look at it. Just for the simple fact is, like, I got video footage and stuff if people like to see it, but it is dark. I leave for work at 4:30 in the morning. My fiance leaves at like 6. There's a middle school boy down the road from us that does ride the bus and has to walk down the road also. It's not just my kids, but I would like to see this get put in the motion.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Does the bus turn around? How does the bus turn around now?
So,
He's not
previously
being
throughout the years that I've lived there, I've watched the bus come down, and they would turn around before my house. They would pick up at like a cattle barn down the road and back up into a neighbor's driveway there. Prior to that, they came past my house and would back up in the last house on the road and use his driveway. And then when my kids started riding, that's where they started picking them up at, was my house. Well, they pick up in front of my house and go to the neighbor's driveway and back in. And everything was fine until that winter, and the bus got stuck, and then they claimed they weren't coming down the road.
Did it get stuck multiple times?
Twice, from what I heard. But years prior to this, from talking to the neighbor, they've never had an issue in the past. They've always came down the road, and now all of a sudden it's an issue. So, I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And I just think a T would be good. I mean, you got delivery trucks, you got it just makes it a little safer on our roads if we could get them eventually all with the T. Unless you want that pole moved for another reason, we can move it and then.
I think a lot of the pools are about to be moved because Spectrum's coming down the road,
Oh.
and they're working with South Central at trying to replace pools too here in the near future.
Yeah, I don't see them as being mutually exclusive of each other.
Okay.
They're not.
We can ask South Central Power to go ahead and move the pole, and Bubba can put some berm material, and if we can use that, and then figure out when we get the engineer's estimate what to go do from there. I don't see that they are opposite options.
Am I able to ask another question? If we get a berm, was it going to be for them pulling out of my driveway?
I can't put it there, but Ryan requested 60 foot of berm. He wanted 60 foot of pipe too, but, I mean, we're just.
That's why I was wondering, because I have my pond to run off that goes on the other side of the road, so I imagine they were just wanting to burn
Just in front of our house.
after they pull out.
Where the pole is, he wanted to do it there. But if we're in front of the driveway and it's touched up, we'll touch it up.
I mean, I'm not worried about my
No,
driveway.
I mean,
Fix
you're
that.
right.
I just
You're
know
right.
about the drainage for the water.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You don't stop all that.
So I'll move to, so you would be fine with moving the pole and doing that berm while we're doing this, doing both?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Okay, I'll move to approve the township request for engineering assistance and also approve the coordination by our administrator in moving that pole and building that berm.
Okay, I'll go ahead, second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. All right, we'll move over to the Tuscarawas Valley Memorial. It's just up for discussion right now. As we said earlier, we did a silence for the horrible accident that took place here in Etna off the highway. There was an email that was sent to me from the Tuscarawas Valley School District asking for us to work with them on putting something together, some kind of memorial. They didn't really say exactly what, but I sent an email, which I shared with the other trustees, that we could discuss to see what we wanted to do, but kind of let them lead the way of what they would like to see happen. So that's up for discussion right now.
I had a thought about one thing maybe we could think about is
Sure.
as we are developing our park property, maybe we could have like a picnic shelter that would be dedicated to the victims and, survivors and families.
Yeah. It's always an idea.
I mean, if we're gonna have the picnic shelter anyway, just put maybe a nice plaque on it or something.
Or if the park has an outside like amphitheater, I don't know what we're gonna be doing on the park, but I think that might be fitting because music and that.
Well, that's a better idea.
Yeah.
If the park has, I mean, some parks do, for like local performances, they'll do. So I'd say if we did that, that would make sense with being in the
I know
band.
there's somebody putting crosses on the side of the freeway.
Yeah.
That's somebody.
So they, we got an email, like I said, I hope you read your email, Mr. Johnson and Mark, and that she sent from up there, wanting us to work with them to try to put something together. And I can turn it over to the administrator, Ms. Hanson, to work with them to try to figure out what they want us to do, if anything, in the future. Because I know right now they're pretty busy. I have not heard back from them since I sent the email.
Yeah, they've got a lot going on, that's for sure.
So,
And maybe it could even work in conjunction with the school walk-ins.
Yeah. I have great contacts at the school board, so I can talk to them about that as well.
so we'll just stick a pin in it for now.
Yeah,
kinda-
stick a pin in it and
Okay,
I'll work on it.
okay.
They had to do something.
All right, so we'll move on over to the 2024 budget timeline. December 5th is our next trustee meeting. I would ask that we could have have questions back by December 1st. Is that okay with you, Ms. Varian?
Yeah, I think so. That should work.
All right.
What kind of questions do you think?
Well, just anything in regards to the budget. Yeah.
Can I have like suggestions or wish lists from you guys by then too?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've
That's
been
right,
working with
yeah.
Mrs. Hanson, but I
Mhm.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should all be provided to Ms. Berry, and then they can be marked. And we
So
can
your wish
discuss on the
list-
5th.
Kind of whatever you're thinking of needs or
Sure.
wants or.
I think you did did you get to
I
send
sent an
it?
email around asking
Yeah,
everybody to,
yes.
to give their wish lists or comments or
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about including.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about worth it, John.
And
Yes.
There is a notes tab on the spreadsheet that I did send you that's got a lot of things that Nina and I have talked about.
Yes,
So far.
I saw
Like a
that.
possible road crew truck and other items. So that's just a spot that we can put things that I can improve.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, this is something Julie and I have been working on for quite a while, and we put together, like, you know, Bubba gave me a list of all of our equipment, and he gave sort of projections about when different pieces of equipment might need to be replaced, and we looked at, you know, the potential need for increase to employees. We brainstormed through a bunch of different things, and so, anyway.
Also, any kind of grants or money that you're gonna apply for, even though it's sort of free money, it still has to go into the budgets, but come back out with the budget for the expenses. So anything that we're gonna apply for that might be on your radar, we need, or loans as well. Will be in there.
And are we going to be bringing in Mr. Burkholder as part of the transition process in this effort?
I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Evans. We're talking about the budget. I'm not sure where you're going.
Correct, this is the 2024 budget.
Correct.
Which Mr. Burkholder will be serving under. So my question is, as part of transition, are we going to bring him into this discussion?
He's not, well, I will talk with the prosecutor to make sure, because for one thing, he's not sworn in yet, so it's not official. Yes, he won the election. Congratulations, Mr. Burkholder, again for the second time.
They just certified
But
today.
I just, no, well, I mean, sworn in. So he was certified today? You were certified today, Mr. Burkholder?
They certified the election.
Okay, okay. So as far as him getting the budget, being involved in it, I don't know. I would have to talk to the prosecutor about it.
The budget is.
No, Mr. Evans,
privy.
again, Mr. Evans, I'm trying to do things properly and right. So I don't know the answer, so I would rather be safe by asking the prosecutor if we can. I didn't, and you didn't when the previous board left. And other boards that I've talked to around the state, they've never done that.
Because they refuse any transition.
So, Mr. Evans, excuse me, please. I will check, and we can see what we need to do to get that to him. I mean, you're making something out of nothing. I noticed, you know, but we'll check into it to make sure that we can do that.
No, I'm trying to provide a proper transition and have input from a city trustee that will be over this budget.
So on the timeline, you suggested having questions back to Julie by December the 1st.
Mhm.
And that, so that they can then be discussed at the next meeting on
Correct.
December the 5th?
That will be December 5th.
Okay. Do you need any other dates on the timeline? Just those two for now?
Just that one for now.
Okay, very good.
Is that okay, Ms. Bailey?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All righty, let's go and move over to Grow-Licking County Board seat. I move that we finalize the letter from the Board of Trustees to Grow-Licking County requesting John Singleton to be considered for the next available board seat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
So you might remember that where this came from. It came out of West Licking Development, CIC, that the West Licking Board suggested a draft letter for this board to send to the Grow-Licking County Board Chair and the Commissioners to appoint a representative of Etna Township to the Grow-Licking Board. And so that's sort of the genesis of where we get to for this particular motion.
Now, just for the public's consumption, this isn't a separate board. This includes John Carlisle, Nita Hanson, and Rosalind McKee.
Huh?
It's your recommending as the board to this. So it's not a separate board recommending this. I just want to make that clear.
It is a separate board. It's a separate board of the West Licking CIC that voted, actually unanimously, and provided a signed letter to this board with the suggestion of the language for the letter that might go to Grow and the county commissioners.
I would have a concern about conflict of interest to have a zoning inspector on a development board.
I frankly think he's probably uniquely suited to serve on that board, given his knowledge of the development plan for the township, the available properties, and the
lay of the land.
As developers come in and ask questions,
But he's in charge of enforcement of dealing with, and I think that there's numerous other people that can do this. I think avoiding any conflict of interest would be the highest priority. And if we're going to, yeah.
Roll call, Ms. Berry.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Johnson regarding the first quarter of 2024 trash and recycle fees.
All right. As you guys, most of you know, we've paid for trash service in the past for a quarter as a way of giving back some of the money that we've had extra in the township. When I say extra, I mean more than we expected to spend. We'll have more this year than what we had last year to carry over. And one way we've done in the past is we've rescinded or suspended the tax revenue for the road levy for 1 year. We did not do this year. We did not do it last year. So another way we found is to do the trash, the way of giving back to our community here, the residents of the township. And it's roughly $150,000 to do that. Basically, we take their bill. The first quarter of the year, it would be, you wouldn't have a bill for that. So I proposed that we would pay for the trash service for the township. I don't believe it's to exceed, well, whatever it is, I think it's right around 150, but just whatever that cost
I
is.
thought it was a lot more.
300.
No,
Is that more of a number than the 150?
Yeah, well, what I might suggest we do is, if this is something that the board would like to move forward with, then I could get the exact amount from Wind Waste and the exact procedure. What I understand is that they projected that the amount would not exceed $150,000. It's just a little bit, depending on how many, residents have service and that type of thing. But based on their numbers, they believe it'll be $150,000. They can suspend the automatic payments, and then of course paper bills would not go out. Instead, a letter and Happy New Year type of, the township is paying for your fees type of letter. So, but if the board wants to go forward, then I would suggest that you don't actually take a vote on this tonight until I can get in writing all of the details. And that at that point, then you can take action maybe at the next meeting.
Would that give us enough time?
I believe so. I mean, if you want to take action tonight,
I'm just asking.
I believe the number is 150,000. It's not going to be more than that. It might be a little less than that, but Wind Waste has told me on the phone that they would lock it in, that they would cap it, and it would not cost us any more than 150,000. They actually think it'd be a little bit less.
Okay.
But
And I've been vehemently opposed to this for the years that's been done for political purposes. Previously, I've heard from resident after resident that they don't want their trash paid, they want the services that should be done, minimize the impacts that development is having on them. We've hired and approved 4 deputies at an extreme cost. Each deputy, I think, is about $150,000 a year. That's coming out of our pocket, which is typically covered, the patrolling is covered by the county. So right there, that's 600,000. And this doesn't reach all residents. I've also had concerns that I'm not included. The villas at Cumberland Trail, they're not included. Other ones. So you're using our resources in a disparate way across all the residents. So I don't think we should do it for that matter. And we may have more revenue now, but the revenue is declining from Amazon. They're halfway through their abatement, which what happens after that? It went from 1.2 million to 1.1 to 1 a year. When they go, it could reduce to a normal Jet Z. So I don't think we should just be frivolous with this. And I mean, we've got a park coming on board. We've got a lot of other stuff. We just talked about all the additional expenses. And we're talking about cars, equipment, more park employees. I think this is a little premature to say we're going to pay your trash. And again, I've heard from constituent after constituent, we don't want that. We want you to deal with the traffic. We want you to deal with all the issues in the township. I mean, why aren't we paying the cable? Why aren't we paying the water? Why aren't we paying, I mean, this, again, it doesn't make sense. It's not fiscally responsible.
Ms. McKee?
Yes, ma'am.
I would ask two things with this one. One, that I get a detailed invoice from them.
Mhm.
And two, when will it be due?
I'm sorry.
When will the payment be due, because it's not in the budget?
In January, the payment would be due in January.
So it's the 2024 item?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll have to, I mean, you can approve it this year, but I'll put it, it'll be in the 2024
Okay.
budget then.
I'm fine to wait till next meeting, if it works for, I was trying to get out so that he could get the letter out, make sure.
Right,
we
right,
know,
right.
and that kind of stuff, so.
I mean, obviously, it's gonna make it easier to make sure it all happens seamlessly if you determine to do this sooner rather than later.
Right.
But, if you're not quite ready to do that, I get that too, but.
I can wait till next meeting, that's fine, as long as you think they'll have time.
That's what I understand.
Yeah. All right, can you put on the next agenda then?
Sure.
Okay, so I guess we can move over to old business. All Traffic Solution, I move to authorize the purchase of a radar signs from All Traffic in the amount, there's two different amounts out there. As the board, Nita went out and pulled some additional information because Mark wanted her to go out and do more research to make sure that we had all the information. And I guess, is it Bluetooth with some additional cloud services that we could
Yes.
get for additional
Yes. So I really
4,000?
created this issue because I was under the mistaken understanding that what I saw at Reynoldsburg, which included cloud-based services, was included. It was part of the quote for $7,393.59.
Yep.
As it turns out, that quote of $73.93.59 does match up with what we had previously approved,
From
and
the
that
other
is
place.
that the data is on the equipment and can be downloaded and saved and reports created locally. It just doesn't have the cloud-based. And in order to do it through Bluetooth and with the cloud-based, then it's $11,000.
$180.34.
Thanks. Since we don't have our own police force, I don't think that's necessary. I thought that was a nice frill.
Yeah.
Which I thought was included.
$4,000.
But it's a $4,000 frill.
Yeah.
And so, that would not be my recommendation. My recommendation would be for us to go forward with the original quote of $7,393.59.
And I agree that we don't need the traffic cloud and the cloud service and that, but my concern was it was presented to the board as being included in there, and we were asked to make a
Yep.
vote.
Totally made a mistake.
But we asked to make a vote on improper information, so that was my concern, and I did have to reach out to Julie Skyton
Yeah,
and
you
get
didn't
that
have to do that
information.
because I was gonna do that the next day.
But, Ms.
But I
Hanson?
just made a mistake, that's all.
Ms. Hanson, please, I'm
Just not
speaking here.
perfect.
Ms. Hanson, please. But that's part of the proper due diligence. We've got to make sure that the information presented to the board is accurate, complete, and just like the other one, lacking the mileage and that, we need the full information to be able to make these decisions. So I would just say, we got to be a little bit more careful in the future.
I need a second.
Yes, well, let me go back to the restate, let me say, because it's going to put the amount in. Yeah, so I move to authorize the purchase of the radar signs for all traffic in the amount of $7,393.59. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
Like I was saying, you guys approved it the last meeting, I don't know if you need a new motion, but.
Okay, roll call.
Go ahead and do it.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, is Mr. Broyle, well, I shouldn't say Mr. Broyles, the gentleman sorry, how you doing? Thanks for hanging out with us.
Patiently waiting.
Oh, you were so patient, I'm sorry, long meeting today.
Yes, sir. I haven't eaten since noon, so.
Oh,
If I
We have
fall down.
some, candy in there.
Okay.
I got ribbons.
So I'm here to hopefully acquire an easement from the township. I think you said last meeting that you're going to go maybe look at the site and look at our other condition over it.
No, that was you, Jeff. No, I did not go. I was waiting for it to fill up with rain actually, so I could see the flow.
Okay.
But that didn't happen until today. So.
Okay.
And I didn't get a chance today to go, so.
I made it.
Did you? Okay. I've spoken with Anita about it. She's on the park committee, I guess, and they were going to go visit the site.
Yep.
So I think they've done that. The issue of maybe why we couldn't re-engineer, so a very timely process of having the final development plan approved. We followed that engineering from that original plan. As you know, the county has all the technical review committees, and it's absolutely the most time-consuming thing. So once you get the development plan, do the engineering, and you must follow that engineering. And so that's what this boils to, that we'd like to get signed and get the easement from you. So I'm not sure if you have any questions or.
No, I'm just still concerned about using park land for an easement of, I think, 0.65 acres. When we don't know what our use is and the configuration on that end, especially without any design or.
The development plan showed that easement. It showed a little box where the easement had to go. And so during the transfer, the parcel transfer to the township, I mean, we're just following the plan. That's all that was. So.
Are you saying that plan, I know there was a lawsuit involved.
Yeah.
In this. Are you saying that easement was part of the settlement?
No. When I talked to Jonathan Wilcox, you know who he is, I presume, he said it shouldn't be an issue, but if it's an issue, it kind of should be. The spirit of the transfer should have included that, because I asked him whether there was any provision when the parcel transferred, did anybody take the easement for the drainage? And I don't think they did. So it was an oversight by somebody. So here we are.
Like I said, I'm just sure we paid for the park. If it was a commercial property, I don't think you'd be letting it. And I mean, you're saying it's out of convenience for so you don't have to redesign that end, correct, of drainage and all that?
Well, if the parcel had changed, it would have been there, been no problem. So whatever transpired to have the parcel, the township purchase it was an oversight, I suppose, but it's always You know, it has to flow to the south, the creek is there. It's gonna be on the downslope of that and then the creek. So there's not really, I don't see anybody being able to do anything in the park. Anita, did you happen to go look at the exact area or?
Well, so yes, when we had our site visit at the park, we looked at the area. And I mean, I think that pretty much the sentiment of the park committee that was there was that, well, I can see, you know, actually, it seems like it should go a little bit farther over, that because the swell is farther over, but people didn't necessarily see it as being problematic because of the material of the spillway itself. And, you know, the fact that, you know, grass would likely cover it. In fact, we have an engineer on our park committee, and the committee said, can you send us what it looks like or what they're proposing? So I sent the materials, and we have an engineer on the park committee, and he said, oh yeah, I don't think that would be any problem. But again, I mean, we don't have any way of knowing what ultimately would be proposed at that area of the park.
Okay, because looking at the satellite, I mean, there's 3 natural ponds there. It is being farmed around it, so it is usable land. So you can envision people going there, and I think that is going to impede on maybe possible use around those ponds. And I just think limiting us, if there's other options, because obviously there are other options.
Yeah, I don't see it that way, but, you know, who am I? The process of to engineer and to get where we are has been, you know, years, essentially. And I don't know, to go back and change and get a new revised development plan through the county, you're talking probably a year and a half. And just for the back slope of a pond, you got it up here at 14 feet, it's the back slope. It's, I mean, and it's gonna be covered, you're not gonna see it. The only thing you're gonna see is the pipe and that bit of riprap at that, when that gets vegetated, that's all you're gonna see. You're not gonna see the matting.
Yeah. Like I said, if you look at it, it's beautiful. It's, I mean, I think it can do a lot.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
If you look at what it's going to be impedance, I think. I mean, it's. And I think we've got to look at this parks here forever for our residents and that. And it's never going to get bigger. Population is, so I think we need to preserve what we have. And we don't even know for sure if we're getting that middle section. Those are that's your pond. And this, oops, sorry. That's why I wish we had overheads.
This is south.
This is south. Yeah, so you can see there, because you're talking about the overflow through that. Because that's you.
This is the pond.
That's the pond, but here's the easement right through all that.
Well, it's literally a little box. Right?
Well, it's over a half acre. I mean.
Yeah, but I think it's probably down here. It's long this way. It's 40 feet.
Right.
So 40 feet wide or something like that.
It's 200 foot by 157? Yeah, it's 200 foot by 157, but it's right at the edge of the pond. And the other side of the pond is the development, so our side would be intersected by this, so if you have any use, I know it caused an inconvenience for the developer.
Well, what would happen if we came back and tried to shrink up the acreage? I mean, that looks bigger than the matting plus the pipe to me. I don't know where that dimension came from, actually.
Well, that's the size of the easement that's being requested.
take into account, making it bigger during the construction phase. So-
Well, the matting is only, this is 157 feet wide. The matting is going to be 45 feet wide. It's going to be three dimensions of that matting, 15 feet.
Right. That's what I'm saying, it's not a small spillway, it's a, and if you're gonna just let it grow, it's,
Well, would you be open if I can get it narrowed down?
well, I think it's just, because the problem here is you got half on the developer side, half the pond on our side. So if you want to use, and
This
that's,
is the edge of our pond, we're going to have a walkway around here.
isn't it our property?
No, I mean, no, it's the actual, literally this property line right here is the edge
walkway?
of the top edge of the pond, so to speak. There's going to be a walkway, an 8-foot asphalt pathway around there.
So, 40, okay. Okay, so that's where you're saying. So we touch it on the one side.
It's going to be roughly right
Yeah.
about in here. Is what it's gonna be.
But then you want to extend it even further.
Yeah, the pond will get extended up to that line there, and then the spillway will go from there.
Oh, you're going to increase the pond size
Yeah.
to our well,
Kind of.
with that 8-foot walkway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the creek is like right here, so this is, you know, kind of high weeds, trees, and then the creek, the little creek that has to drain into it. So it's not the farm, the flat land that you're talking about. It's kind of hilly, hard to even walk
Go
over.
look at it. I
could-
could see it when there was water in this.
I'd almost like to see that land. I haven't been there.
Okay. Well, let's go look at it. I want to go look at it.
Go and table it,
I'm
so-
gonna try to get this as soon as
Because
possible.
I'd like to, if it is that
cold and rainy.
rocky, I don't
I
know.
think you'll agree that it's not what you're thinking. It's not, I don't think it's gonna impede anything.
But I'd like to,
Look at it. The road is built, so we have the road coming off of Refugee Road, there's probably 150 feet, then the road starts, and it's almost the last, inch and a quarter of asphalt, but it's all asphalted through there, you can walk. I think it's kind of blocked off with equipment, but you can walk right up the road, and then it's not too far to that pond.
okay. I mean, I'd like to do that. If we're going to make a decision, make it informed.
Do you have a projection about when Refugee and Smoke will be open?
Yeah, so today I got a call from Jared Nur and Brad Mercer. We're gonna have a weekly meeting. I've invited Don out to the Tuesday morning meeting. The mission is to open it up as quick as we can. I think that most all the crossing pipes are done. The lift station has been a total amazing project, because every pipe that we uncovered has been the wrong pipe. We've had to redo plans, Mr. Filchers had to approve all that. Anyway, the mission is to open it up before Christmas. The box culvert will not be in, so in April, we'll put the box culvert in and then do the road lining and then.
So the last projection I heard was December 7th, but now you're
Yeah, no, it's
saying,
gonna be about,
thank you.
so that's, Don's gonna come to the meeting, he'll know what the game plan is.
Thank you.
We didn't have the motion on the floor, did we?
No.
So we're going to table it to next meeting. So I guess they're going to
Yeah, but I don't even think there's anything to table. I mean,
You know,
it's
yeah,
just-
there's
Well,
no motion.
they're
made
just
to
gonna,
table.
oh,
Right, we're just,
yeah,
And
just,
is that site, you said it's open, so if I go this weekend, it would be?
Yeah. You won't be able to drive, you'll be able to get on Refugee Road, go right up to the site, there's some gravel you can pull in, and then walk up, and then you can walk down, if you don't mind, walking down the brand new road from there. So there's a gap between Refugee Road and the new road, because all that lift station, the pump station work is all right there, and we couldn't build the road.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
it's also not very far walk if you go in off of Smoke at the, sort of the entrance right there at Smoke, and then you walk around and kind of go around the corner like that. It's not a very far walk from Smoke.
There's a drive that you can park in, right?
Yeah, we parked it right there at Smoke, at that entrance, and then walked. And it wasn't very far. You could walk it that way as well.
All right, sound good?
I hope you get to it, and we sure look forward to it.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Okay, we'll move over into the fiscal officer report. I move resolution 2311-2103 to approve the purchase orders as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
The neighborhood strategies, that $500, did you ever find out what that was for, or?
The contract that I have says an amount that I divided and shorted at $500, so.
Okay, so it was for the still full, to make it full
Yeah, it's
contract,
just to make it
okay.
full. Now, there is a purchase order on there for the 103 Crest. What's the address again? For the light, right?
The Just Howard?
Yeah, that one is for a light pole that was damaged, a couple of years ago, Bubba?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago, yeah.
That apparently I looked back and was never paid.
Do it, are we tracking the reimbursement on this?
Well, we don't expect there's going to be a reimbursement on this one because it was the result of teenagers who stole a vehicle and hit the pole. But it was something that had been, well, I have to research it because I just found out about it today, but from what Mr. Copley was saying, this was an incident that happened a number of years ago. The pole has just been replaced because of supply chain delays. And so that's why we now have an invoice, because they now have replaced the pole that was from a number of years ago. And so we just need to track it back through the history to figure out what is going on, but it's not likely that there is any insurance to cover reimbursement because of the circumstances of the accident.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to ratify the payment for bills as shown on the payment listing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
And actually, I have a fund summary reports to do if you don't mind for just a second.
I'm sorry.
I have the revenue and
Okay.
expenses. As of the end of October, the year-to-date revenue was 6.4 million. The year-to-date expenditures were 4.3 million. We currently have a cash balance of 7.7 million among all the accounts. And right now, I'm estimating we'll have a carryover of unencumbered funds of 6.9 million, well, actually 6 million. So that means we'll go into 2024 with about $6 million of expenses that we didn't spend in 2023.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee announcements, we'll move over there.
Yes, I'd just like to say, related to the earlier actions of the board, again, the investigation was halted by Ms. McKee after the quote-unquote investigator stated that they couldn't meet because they had a trial and this, that, the other. I think it's unfortunate because it wasn't proper. That there was a final report that was demanded without all the information, and there was plenty of information to show that there was issues with the employee that were not being addressed properly. So I think it's unfortunate, but again, to halt it early by one member of this board is inappropriate, and our counsel did say that that's what happened.
I'm just going to make you guys know that the attorney-client privilege is waived on that report, so it's available. They did reach out to you, Mr. Evans, over 15 times to try to set up, and you said you wanted to move it to the first. Because of the fact that we do have a new trustee that's going to start the first of the year, so best thing was to get the report taken care of as soon as possible. And they did try to reach out to you, like I said, over 15 times, but you couldn't work with the investigator. Second thing, I want to bring up the fact that Mrs. Brown, during election, had a sign in her car, which had nothing to do with me. And there's no policy in place. I never told Mrs. Brown to put that sign in your car. I had nothing to do with that. There's no policy, there's no procedure in place, there's nothing changed to make that happen. I know there was rumors by one of our trustees that put that out there, so I just want to lay that to rest. Third thing, I want to bring up the fact that the equipment that was in this room that would help with the cameras, that I stole it. No, I've never even put my hands on the equipment. So let's clear that up real quick. I know people like me, people sometimes think we're thieves, but no, I don't have a reason to take it. I never put my hands on it. I did make sure that because of my background, security, that machines can be moved from one place to another. And then we hired a investigator, forensic, that came out and moved the equipment from one place, from our location to their location, and then back with my signature, but I never touched the equipment. So the equipment is still available, so let's just keep that in mind, that I never took the equipment. I never removed it even out of the closet. So, yeah, so I just want to get that on record.
I have photos otherwise.
I'll help clear this up. I contacted the prosecutor's office about what happened with the cameras and the accessing that Trustee Evans did, and they advised me to secure it so that no further damage could be done to the recorder in the back thing. So I came in here and I secured it on that same day. I locked it up in the safe. I had 2 witnesses, and it's been there ever since, except for when the investigator came and got it to check on it. I know we've heard that Ms. McKee had taken it. Mr. Evans has accused her of taking it. The answer is that I took it. And so I put it in there that day, and so I wanted to clear that up. To answer your question you asked me a while ago, Ryan, and that's what happened. So
why would you answer it then?
Because it was public comments, not question and answer session.
I asked you after the meeting.
Well, I asked you about something too, and you didn't really give me an answer on it. So
He's not a trustee.
I know, but it doesn't matter.
I'm
just saying that
we asked for months where that was, and it was
So
refused.
now,
the answer was secured.
And to blame a resident, come on, John.
No, I didn't blame him. I just said I didn't give an answer.
so hopefully you can go out on Facebook now and make it be clear that Mrs. McKee did not steal the equipment.
But it was an advice of counsel
And I
that
never touched it.
secure that.
Thank you. So let's make a motion to adjourn for tonight.
Second.
Keys are secured also.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy your